Welcome back to AM Northwest. Can someone really die of a broken heart? Our first guest knows firsthand the impact of a little-known and poorly understood cardiac condition, one caused by great emotional or physical stress. Here to share her story, we welcome the author of What Becomes of the Brokenhearted, Juliet Sullivan. Good to have you with us, Juliet.
Thank you, Helen.
You know this firsthand, as I mentioned. Tell me your story first.
So I developed this condition in October of 2023 on Friday the 13th.
Oh, wow.
Not that I'm suspicious, but sorry, superstitious.
Yeah. I'm suspicious and superstitious.
I'm superstitious.
So
I'm both.
Yeah,
So
gotcha.
I had some trauma leading up to this day. Obviously, I didn't suspect that I was going to get a heart condition because of the trauma, but that's exactly what happened. I woke up one morning, had compression in my chest, I felt out of breath, I couldn't really walk, and kind of collapsed on the floor, but no real chest pain. And my daughter actually wanted me to go to emergency. I resisted that, and she actually made me go to emergency, where I was quickly rushed through with a suspected heart attack. It turned out it wasn't a heart attack, but that is what I was told when I first went in.
And what was it?
It's something called tako-tsubo cardiomyopathy, which they call broken heart syndrome. So when they diagnosed it, that's what they told me. So first of all, they told me I had a heart attack because there's an enzyme in your blood called troponin, which indicates a heart attack. They got the bloods back. They said that that's what it was. And then they came back to me and said, because the ECG was normal, that they suspected Takotsubo. So obviously I said, what is that? I've no idea. I've never heard of it. No one I know has ever heard of it. But they also didn't know that much about it. And they kept me in hospital for 6 days while they investigated further until they could rule out heart disease.
Well, and when you talk about the traumatic event, it was your mom had taken her own life.
Yes, it was. So my mum had taken her own life in March of that year. The day before my heart event, I attended remotely the inquest. So in England, you have an inquest into a death if it's unexplained. I watched as my sister and my best friend and my nephew went into a court setting, and my mum's doctor was questioned, and I got to question the doctor remotely. And then at the end of it, they determined it was a suicide, which we knew. But it was then, official. So I did that. Then the rest of that day I was kind of numb. And then that evening I went to a suicide bereavement group, which I had joined 3 weeks earlier and was going every week. And it was traumatic there, but I was also getting some kind of closure and peace from it and speaking to other people who had suffered suicide bereavement. But in retrospect, that wasn't a great thing for me to do on the same day.
Because you were hearing other people's stories?
Yes, that's a lot to do with it. I was very traumatized by these people's stories. But that night, they asked us to write on a piece of paper something we wish we'd said to our person. And I wrote on my piece of paper, I should have listened to you.
Wow.
And it was powerful because it really, it made me realize that, yes, I should have listened to my mum, even though our relationship was very difficult and complicated.
Yeah, it was very challenging to begin with.
Very challenging.
She probably had done things before that you're finally like, I'm not going to listen to this.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what happened. I was at a point where I could have cut contact with my mum, and I didn't, because I didn't want to feel guilty. So I tried to pacify her. I had her we live in Canada. I had her stay with me for a little while. That didn't go well. She got on a plane and went home, and 6 weeks later she took her life without me being able to help her. But in retrospect, I wish that I had listened to what she was saying, because she did threaten suicide. And I didn't really take it seriously.
You talked to other survivors of this as well.
Yes.
What have you learned?
So what I've learned about this condition is there's absolutely no way to predict it. There's not really a way to prevent it, and there's no prognosis for it. So the main demographic for Takotsubo, or broken heart syndrome, is postmenopausal women.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, interesting and also annoying, because it's
Right.
one more thing that we as women
Right.
have to watch out
One
for.
more thing.
One more thing.
Right.
So-
Did you find any women who'd had this after losing their spouse?
Yes.
Because you often hear of that.
Yes. So I spoke to many women and one man. It's hard to find men, but men are out there. They
Yeah.
are increasing in numbers. But I spoke to women that had lost people. I spoke to people that had been in near drownings and had it. I spoke to people that had absolutely no trigger at all. One lady was just sitting on her sofa watching TV and had an attack of Takotsubo. So there's no sense in this
Do you
thing.
think it could also be a buildup of trauma, even
I
from
think
maybe
in my
childhood,
case-
and then?
In my case, I absolutely think that. I think, and that's why in my book I do write about my childhood, because I feel like I had so much build-up of trauma through my childhood, right through to my mum taking her own life.
Yeah.
And I never dealt with it. I never sought counselling until afterwards. I never really acknowledged that it was a build-up of trauma.
Right.
So for me personally, if I'm talking about my own story, then yes, I do believe that. I don't know if that's true for other people, because
Yeah.
some people say they didn't have trauma in their
Right.
lives.
Yeah. There is humor in this book, though. I mean, as sad as we will.
hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do write. I think I write with humor. And I wanted to get that across, as dark as the subject is.
Right.
I just wanted people to not be burdened with such an awful story, because
Right.
it's not really a happy story, any of it, except my survival. I survived. All the women and the man in the book all survived.
Yeah.
So there's that element of it. But I just wanted to inject a little bit of humor in there, so it's not very dark.
And there really isn't a book out there like this.
There isn't.
Yeah.
That's why I wrote it. So when I was in the hospital for those 6 days, I wanted to know more, and the doctors couldn't tell me.
Yeah.
So I looked up online what I could find. I wanted to buy a book. I wanted to get the book. There was nothing. There was one book I could find online that was a medical book. I did buy it, and it was unhelpful to me. I wanted people's stories. I wanted to know why people get it.
Right.
So that's also why I interviewed a couple of experts in the book.
Yeah.
I
Fascinating.
wanted to include
Yeah.
that information.
Yes. I'm glad you're doing okay now.
Thank you.
Yeah. We want to tell everyone the book again is titled What Becomes of the Broken Hearted. It's fascinating. Juliet Sullivan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Helen.
All right. We'll be right back with more AM Northwest. Don't go away.